The pounding on Tessa Turner's apartment door startled her so badly she nearly knocked over her coffee mug. She glanced at the clock 6:15 a.m. on a Saturday and groaned, wondering who could possibly need her attention at this ungodly hour. "Tess, open up. It's an emergency." The frantic voice of her best friend Maya pierced through the door. Tessa rushed to unlock it, finding Maya standing there still dressed in her nurse's scrubs, eyes wild with panic. "They just called me in for a 12-hour shift. The hospital is short-staffed and I can't find a sitter for Zoe on such short notice. Please tell me you can watch her today. I'm desperate." Tessa rubbed her eyes, mentally checking her schedule. "Of course I can, but thank you." Maya nearly collapsed with relief. "I need to drop her off at my place, though. I just moved into that new high-rise downtown, the one I've been talking about for months. The Kingsley Tower." Tessa's eyebrows shot up. "How did you afford that on a nurse's salary?" Maya waved her hand dismissively. "My cousin owns a unit and is letting me sublease at a fraction of the cost while he's overseas. It's only temporary, but it's amazing. The views are incredible and there's a doorman and everything." She grabbed Tessa's hand. "So you'll come in about an hour?" "Yes, but perfect. I'll text you the address and the door code. Zoe's already had breakfast, but there's plenty of food in the fridge." Maya was already backing toward the elevator. "Oh, and don't worry about the mess. I haven't had time to unpack everything." Before Tessa could ask any more questions, Maya was gone, leaving her standing in her doorway in pajama shorts and a tank top, wondering how she'd gone from a peaceful Saturday morning to an impromptu babysitting gig in a luxury high-rise. An hour later, Tessa stood in front of the gleaming glass doors of Kingsley Tower, her reflection staring back at her. She'd thrown on a simple sundress and sandals, hair pulled back in a messy bun, a small backpack containing her laptop and a book slung over her shoulder. The doorman nodded politely as she entered the immaculate lobby with its marble floors and tasteful modern art. "I'm here to see Maya Chen in unit." Tessa checked her phone. 4201. The doorman's eyebrows rose slightly. "The Penthouse. One moment, please." He made a quick call, then nodded. "Miss Chen is expecting you. The elevator to your right requires a key card for the Penthouse level, but I'll send you up." Penthouse. Maya had conveniently left that detail out. The private elevator whisked Tessa upward, her stomach fluttering not just from the rapid ascent, but from the realization that she was about to spend the day in what must be a multi-million-dollar apartment. The elevator doors opened directly into the foyer of the Penthouse. Tessa stepped out hesitantly, calling, "Maya, in here, just finishing getting ready." Tessa's jaw dropped as she took in her surroundings. The Penthouse was spectacular floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a panoramic view of the city, minimalist furnishings that screamed expensive taste, and an open-concept design that made the space feel even larger than it already was. "This isn't just an apartment," Tessa muttered to herself. "It's a palace in the sky." Maya emerged from a hallway, 5-year-old Zoe trailing behind her. "I know, right? I still can't believe I get to live here, even temporarily." She knelt down to Zoe's level. "Sweetie, remember Miss Tessa? She's going to stay with you today while Mommy goes to work." Zoe nodded solemnly, her dark pigtails bouncing. "Can we make cookies? Mommy said we have all the stuff." Tessa smiled, crouching down. "We absolutely can make cookies and whatever else you want to do today." Maya handed Tessa a sheet of paper. "Here's everything you need to know: emergency contacts, schedule, allergies, though she doesn't have any. My cousin said feel free to use anything in the house. The kitchen is fully stocked." "Speaking of your cousin," Tessa said, glancing around, "he must be doing well for himself." Maya checked her watch and grimaced. "Gotta run or I'll be late. Zoe, be good for Miss Tessa. Love you, sweetie." With quick hugs all around, she dashed to the elevator, calling over her shoulder, "I should be back by 7 tonight." And just like that, Tessa was alone with Zoe in the most luxurious space she'd ever set foot in. "So," she said to the little girl, "cookies first, or should we explore this amazing place?" "Explore," Zoe declared, grabbing Tessa's hand. The Penthouse tour revealed even more opulence than Tessa had initially observed. Besides the main living area and gourmet kitchen, there was a home office with built-in bookshelves. A meteor room with a screen that took up an entire wall, 4 bedrooms including a master suite that was bigger than Tessa's entire apartment, and a rooftop terrace with a small pool and garden area. "Your mom's cousin must be very, very rich," Tessa muttered, more to herself than to Zoe. "Uncle Alex says money isn't important but kindness is," Zoe replied matter-of-factly. "That's what he always tells me." "Uncle Alex sounds very wise," Tessa said, smiling at the child's innocent recitation of adult wisdom. "Now, how about those cookies?" They spent the morning baking chocolate chip cookies, with Zoe standing on a step stool at the massive kitchen island, carefully measuring ingredients under Tessa's supervision. After lunch and a brief nap for Zoe, they painted watercolors on the terrace, played board games in the living room, and built a blanket fort in Zoe's temporary bedroom. As afternoon faded into evening, Tessa prepared a simple dinner of pasta with vegetables, which Zoe helped stir while standing safely away from the stove. They were setting the table when the elevator chimed. "That must be your mom back early," Tessa said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. But when the elevator doors opened, it wasn't Maya who stepped out. It was a man tall, with broad shoulders filling out an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, dark hair slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it in frustration. His jawline was sharp enough to cut glass, and his tired eyes were a striking blue-gray that widened in surprise at finding strangers in his home. "Uncle Alex," Zoe shrieked, abandoning her task to run full tilt toward him. The man's stern expression immediately softened as he crouched down to catch the little girl in his arms. "Hey, Munchkin, what are you doing here?" His voice was deep but gentle as he lifted her up. "Mommy had to work, so Miss Tessa is watching me," Zoe explained, pointing toward the kitchen. The man, Alex, looked over Zoe's head, his eyes locking with Tessa's across the room. Something electric passed between them, a moment of mutual assessment that made Tessa suddenly very aware of her casual dress and the flour that probably dusted her cheeks. "I'm Tessa Turner," she said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "Maya's friend. I had no idea anyone else would be here today." "Alexander Keller," he replied, shifting Zoe to one arm so he could shake Tessa's hand. His grip was firm, his palm warm against hers. "This is my home. And Maya is my cousin, though I wasn't expecting her or Zoe to be using it until next week." Tessa's heart sank. "I'm so sorry for the intrusion. Maya said you were overseas." "I was supposed to be, but the acquisition deal I was working on fell through," a flash of something annoyance. Frustration crossed his face before he controlled it. "I flew back early." "Acquisition deal?" Tessa asked, mentally connecting dots. Expensive Penthouse international business, the confident authority he exuded. "Alex Keller," she repeated slowly. "As in Keller Innovations, the CEO." A reluctant half-smile curved his lips. "Guilty." Tessa had just spent the day baking cookies and building blanket forts in the home of one of the city's most powerful business executives, a man whose technology company was valued at billions. The same man whose strict business practices and ruthless negotiation tactics were frequently featured in the business sections of newspapers. "We made cookies," Zoe announced proudly, "and we're having pasta for dinner. You can have some too." Alex's expression softened again as he looked at his little cousin. "That sounds wonderful, Munchkin. Much better than my original plan of takeout alone in my office." He glanced back at Tessa. "If you don't mind the company, of course." There was something in his eyes, a weariness behind the power, a loneliness perhaps that caught Tessa off guard. This wasn't the cold business shark she'd read about. This was a man who had just had his plans disrupted but was putting on a brave face for a child who adored him. "We have plenty," she found herself saying. "Though I should warn you, I had a 5-year-old sous chef, so I can't guarantee gourmet quality." For the first time, Alex smiled fully, transforming his face from merely handsome to devastating. "After airline food and conference room sandwiches for the past 2 weeks, anything homemade sounds perfect." Dinner turned out to be surprisingly comfortable. Alex loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, listening intently as Zoe recounted their day's adventures. Tessa found herself drawn to the way he gave the child his complete attention, asking questions about her watercolors and laughing genuinely at her descriptions of their blanket fort engineering challenges. "So what do you do, Tessa, when you're not rescuing my cousin from childcare emergencies?" Alex asked as they cleared the plates, Zoe happily coloring at the coffee table. "I'm a children's book illustrator," she replied. "Freelance, which gives me the flexibility to help Meyer out occasionally." His eyebrows rose with interest. "Published work, a few titles. Nothing you'd find on bestseller lists, but enough to pay the bills." She shrugged, suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. "Don't sell yourself short," he said. "Creative work is valuable. My company may focus on technology, but I've always believed that art and innovation are closely linked." "That's not what I expected the CEO of Keller Innovations to say," Tessa admitted. Alex leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Let me guess. You expected a cold, calculating businessman who only cares about profit margins and stock prices." Tessa felt her cheeks warm. "The business pages don't exactly paint you as warm and fuzzy." "They're not entirely wrong," he conceded with a wry smile. "I am demanding and exacting in business. But contrary to popular belief, I do have other dimensions. Like being Uncle Alex who tells his little cousin that kindness matters more than money," Tessa asked, recalling Zoe's earlier comment. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. "She remembered that, huh? She quotes you quite seriously." Alex glanced over at Zoe, his expression softening. "Kids have a way of cutting through the nonsense. When you're responsible for thousands of employees and their families, sometimes the weight of those decisions can make you harder than you want to be." "Zoe reminds me of what really matters." The raw honesty in his voice touched something in Tessa. This wasn't the calculated charm of a businessman. This was a glimpse of the man behind the corporate facade. The elevator chimed, interrupting the moment. Maya stepped out, looking exhausted in her scrubs. "Tessa, thank you so much for—" She stopped short, eyes widening. "Alex, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Singapore." "Deal fell through," he replied simply, "but I came home to quite the surprise." Maya winced. "I'm so sorry. I should have checked with you first, but you said the place was mine until the end of the month, and it was an emergency, and it's fine." Alex cut her off with a gentle smile. "No harm done. In fact, I should be thanking you. It's been a long time since I came home to a home-cooked meal and good company." Maya's eyes darted between Alex and Tessa, a speculative look crossing her tired face. "Well, that's good then," she yawned dramatically. "Zoe, sweetie, time to go. Say thank you to Miss Tessa and Uncle Alex." After goodbyes and promises to see each other soon, Meyer and Zoe departed, leaving Tessa alone with Alex in the suddenly quiet penthouse. "I should get going too," Tessa said, gathering her backpack. "Let me call you a car," Alex offered. "That's not necessary." "I can just grab the subway. It's after 8 p.m., he said firmly. "Please let me make sure you get home safely. It's the least I can do after you spent your Saturday taking care of my little cousin." Tessa hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you." As they waited for confirmation that the car was ready, an awkward silence fell between them. "I enjoyed meeting you, Tessa," Alex finally said, his voice lower than before. "Your kindness with Zoe, it was nice to witness." "She's a great kid," Tessa replied. "You clearly mean a lot to her." "I try to be present when I can." A shadow crossed his face, "which isn't as often as I'd like." Tessa's phone buzzed with a text. "That must be the car." Alex walked her to the elevator. "Would it be presumptuous of me to ask for your number?" "In case Maya has another emergency and I could help out." Tessa looked up at him, trying to read his expression. Was this just politeness or something more? The intensity in his eyes suggested the latter. "I think that would be reasonable," she said, offering a small smile as she recited her number, which he immediately entered into his phone. "Thank you again for today," he said as the elevator arrived. "You brought something unexpected into this space." "What's that?" His smile was gentle but genuine. "Life." The elevator doors closed, and Tessa leaned against the wall, her heart beating unexpectedly fast. It had been just one evening, just a few hours of conversation with a man she'd only just met. Yet something about Alexander Keller had gotten under her skin, not the powerful CEO, but the man who crouched down to catch a running child, who admitted to feeling the weight of his responsibilities, who looked at her with eyes that seemed to really see her. The following Tuesday, Tessa was deep in work on her latest illustration project when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Alex Keller. I hope I'm not interrupting your day, but I wanted to thank you properly for Saturday. Would you consider letting me take you to dinner this week?" Tessa stared at the message, her pulse quickening. Was Alexander Keller actually asking her out? She typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "That would be nice. When did you have in mind?" His response came quickly. "How about tomorrow at 7? I know a place with excellent food and a quiet atmosphere where we can talk." One dinner turned into 2, then 3. Alex took her to small, out-of-the-way restaurants where they wouldn't be recognized or interrupted, places where the food was exceptional but the atmosphere unpretentious. They talked for hours each time about Tessa's art, about books they loved, about Alex's vision for his company beyond just profit margins. "Most people think technology is cold, impersonal," he explained one evening over dessert. "But I see it as a way to connect people, to solve real problems. My newest project is developing affordable tablets for schools in low-income areas." "That doesn't sound like the ruthless businessman the papers describe," Tessa observed, Alex's mouth twisted. "The business world respects strength and decisiveness." "I don't apologize for being demanding or for expecting excellence, but that doesn't mean I don't have a moral compass." As the weeks passed, Tessa discovered more sides to Alex. He was intensely private but had a dry wit that emerged when he was comfortable. He worked punishing hours but always texted to wish her good night. He could be intimidating in his focus but listened to her opinions with genuine interest. Their first kiss came on their 5th date, after he walked her to her apartment door. It was tentative at first, then deepening into something that left them both breathless. "I've been wanting to do that since the night I found you in my kitchen," he admitted, his forehead resting against hers. "That long?" she teased. "Longer, if I'm being honest," he murmured. "I think I was half in love with you by the time we finished dinner." Summer turned to fall, and their relationship deepened. Alex introduced Tessa to his world gradually, a charity gala here, a business dinner there, but he was careful to keep their relationship out of the public eye, protecting her privacy as fiercely as his own. Tessa, in turn, brought warmth into his life. She convinced him to take occasional days off, introduced him to her favorite bookstores and art galleries, and slowly watched the tension he carried in his shoulders ease when they were together. "You know," she said one Sunday morning as they lingered over coffee on his terrace, "your penthouse felt so different that first day I was here. So pristine and perfect, but unlived in," he suggested. "Exactly. It was beautiful but didn't feel like a home." Alex looked around at the subtle changes that had occurred over the months, Tessa's sketchbooks stacked on the coffee table, a throw blanket she'd brought over draped across his expensive couch, a vase of fresh flowers that hadn't been selected by his interior designer. "It never was a home before," he said quietly, "just a place to sleep between meetings." He took her hand. "You've changed that. You've changed a lot of things." In November, Alex invited Tessa to accompany him to Singapore, the rescheduled business trip that had unexpectedly brought them together months earlier. "I'll be in meetings most days," he warned her. "But the evenings would be ours, and we could take a few extra days after the business portion is done." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Won't I be a distraction?" His smile was tender as he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "The best kind. Besides, I work better knowing you're nearby." "You ground me, Tessa. You remind me why the work matters in the first place." The trip was magical, luxurious in a way Tessa had never experienced, yet intimate in the moments they stole together between Alex's meetings. She sketched in cafes while he negotiated deals, explored markets and gardens during the day, and fell asleep in his arms each night in their hotel suite. On their last evening in Singapore, Alex took her to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city's spectacular skyline. After their meal, as they stood at the railing watching the lights twinkle below, he turned to her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "When I came home early from my last trip and found you in my kitchen, I was irritated at first," he admitted. "I had just endured a failed negotiation, a 14-hour flight, and all I wanted was silence and solitude." "Not exactly what you got," Tessa said with a small laugh. No, his eyes were serious, though his lips curved in a smile. "Instead, I found a beautiful woman making pasta with my little cousin, bringing life and laughter into a space that had never known it before. And in that moment, though I couldn't have named it, then everything changed." He took both her hands in his. "I've built a company, accumulated wealth, achieved success by every conventional measure. But until you walked into my life, I never realized how empty it all was, how empty I was." Tessa's heart pounded as Alex reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm not perfect, Tessa. I work too much, I can be demanding and stubborn, but I promise you this: I will love you completely for the rest of my life. I will cherish every day we have together." He opened the box to reveal a stunning but tasteful diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears sprang to Tessa's eyes as she looked from the ring to the man she had come to love so deeply, the man whose public persona hid a heart of surprising tenderness, whose drive was matched only by his integrity, whose love had transformed her life as much as she had transformed his. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes, Alexander Keller, I will marry you." As he slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss that promised forever, Tessa marveled at how unexpectedly life could change. 8 months ago, she had reluctantly agreed to babysit for a friend in a luxury penthouse. Tonight, she was agreeing to spend her life with the man whose home she had accidentally invaded. They were married the following spring in an intimate ceremony on the rooftop terrace of the penthouse where they had first met. Maya, serving as Tessa's maid of honor, couldn't resist pointing out her matchmaking success. "If I hadn't been called into that emergency shift, you two might never have met," she said smugly during her toast. "Actually," Alex confessed later that night when he and Tessa were alone, "I've been meaning to tell you something. That acquisition deal didn't exactly fall through the way I let everyone believe." Tessa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I could have stayed in Singapore another week, tied up loose ends, but something told me to come home. I felt drawn back, almost compelled. I had no idea why at the time." He traced her cheek with gentle fingers. "Now I know I was coming back to find you." "That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard or you're trying to compete with Maya's matchmaking claims," Tessa teased. Alex laughed, pulling her closer. "Maybe a bit of both. But I do believe some things are meant to be, even if we don't recognize them at first. Like a CEO coming home to find a children's book illustrator making pasta in his kitchen. Exactly like that," he murmured against her lips. "The beginning of the greatest merger of my life." 2 years later, Tessa sat on that same rooftop terrace, sketching idly while watching Alex holding their 6-month-old daughter, Lily. The penthouse had transformed completely from the austere showplace it had once been into a true family home, still elegant, but now filled with photographs, children's toys, and the comfortable clutter of a well-lived life. "What are you drawing?" Alex asked, coming to sit beside her, baby Lily gurgling happily in his arms. Tessa turned her sketchbook to show him. It was a scene of their first meeting, a tall, imposing man in a business suit looking surprised at finding a young woman and a little girl in his kitchen. "I'm thinking of writing and illustrating a children's book," she explained, "about unexpected love and finding home in the most surprising places." Alex smiled, the special smile he reserved only for her and their daughter. "I think that sounds perfect." As the sun set over the city skyline, casting a golden glow over the little family, Tessa reflected on the journey that had brought them here. One last-minute babysitting favor had changed everything, bringing her not just love, but a whole new life she could never have imagined. Alex leaned over to kiss her softly. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what? For turning my house into a home, for giving me a family, for showing me that success isn't measured in acquisitions and assets but in moments like this." Tessa rested her head on his shoulder, their daughter nestled between them, and knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes, love arrived in the most unexpected ways, even through an elevator door opening onto a penthouse kitchen, where a CEO came home to find a future he never could have planned for. But that turned out to be better than any deal he could have ever negotiated.